I was not announced as a magician, just as a mystery man. So the first show that I did was what I called suggestibility. And in order to do that, I had to get volunteers. So I usually ask for as many volunteers as possible to come to the front of the stage and stand in front of me in a long line. And then I give them numbers. And then I ask the audience to decide whether we're going to choose the odds or the evens. So it's entirely up to the audience. And they call out odd or even. I then ask all the odd numbers or the even numbers to come up, depends what has been chosen. That's what I'm doing there. I'm just pointing to the volunteers, giving them the numbers. And I get a lot of people on the stage because I do different experiments and like to have as many people as possible. In each show, I would have a panel of judges to see fair play, because you can't give things out for all the audience to examine. So I would have some VIPs, some celebrities or some well-known people in the front. In this case, a well-known lawyer, a prominent businessman, a television executive, a lady who was on the local council, people that were known to the main audience and who were respectable and could verify that something was exactly as I said it was. They would sit in the front. And this theatre held nearly 3,000 people in the round. It was called the Circus Theatre because of that. Very interesting theatre to work in, with a huge stage. And there we have the volunteers up, and as you can see, I get anything between 15 and 20 people up. And in this particular show, the first show, I was doing what I call suggestibility tests. For instance, I have an imaginary knife in my hand, which I apparently cut people. They can feel the cut. They even look down to see if their jacket or skirt had been torn. Of course it hasn't. It's all in the mind, imagination. I stamp on the floor saying it's somebody's foot, and they can feel it and they jerk their foot back. All these things are called suggestibility things. They're not hypnotized. It's purely done by verbal suggestion. I make them forget their name, or they won't be able to pronounce a certain number. I do various kinds of things like that. I draw an imaginary circle with my foot, just say there's a circle there, and as they walk over it, they get stuck and they can't get their foot away from the circle. And then I did quite a few other experiments which were unlike that. In this particular show I did my well-known table levitation, and the Dutch audience had never seen before, where I get a number of people around the table putting their hands on the table, then it comes up, and to prove that their hands aren't stuck to the table, they wiggle their fingers like that, and then they lift one hand and the other. When they lift both hands, the table drops, but they catch it before it hits the ground, and then eventually it starts swaying to music and even spinning.
Stop that now, stop that, and let's try spinning. Would you start spinning now? Would you go around, keep looking at the cross inside the circle? Faster, faster, faster now, come on, faster, 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 faster. Keep looking at the cross inside the circle, faster, table drop, drop that.
Another thing I did in the second show is these are zodiac signs. Volunteers from the audience come up, and I ask them to hold a little brass tube in each hand connected with a wire to these big circular zodiac signs. And then they concentrate on the months that they're born, and the dial starts spinning around and stops at the months that they're born. Then I ask them to think of the actual date, and the dial spins the other way and points to the date they were born. This, of course, is very puzzling. Not only how do the boards work and how does the spindle spin without me touching it, but how could I have possibly known their birthdays, because these are volunteers from the audience, and that's what I specialize in. Another one is where the television company invited about 30 people to come backstage. I was not allowed to meet them. I was locked in another room, but they were asked to wear their uniforms, whatever they did as a profession. Then the audience, before I come on, chooses about 8 or 10 of these people who are asked to stand behind a screen before I'm allowed to come out, and they put their hands through 2 holes each, so you see the left and right hand sticking through these holes, and just by looking at their hands I try and determine what kind of profession they have. And when I have thought of a profession, I go to a little table which contains lots of different things. I pick something up which I think is to do with their profession, then I ask them to come out, and by their uniform or their dress you can see that I was right. For instance, we have when I say this is a very artistic hand, is probably a musician, maybe a violinist. He comes out dressed in tails, carrying a violin, but I picked out the bow from this table. Or if it's a chef in a white uniform and he brings out a bowl, I've given her a ladle. So I pick up an appropriate thing from the table. There are about 40, 50 items there, and I determine which profession they have. Once the boards have been taken away and they come out, you can see the train guard, and manicurist, the chef, violinist, and so on. That caused quite a sensation. And also I brought over some showgirls from England who started the show and finished the show with a magic routine which we taught them. So here we have the girls doing a large card trick. It's just basically a very good card trick. It's called the 4-ace trick. They do it as a dance routine with giant cards. And in one of the last shows, I had a very pretty girl come out in an open sports car, bright red sports car, where she slowly comes out. It's the end of the show. Everybody's getting edgy, pointing to their watches, and the audience knows it's come to the end. I said, just before I go, I want to show you a very interesting effect with numbers. And I then have a blackboard with squares on it, and I ask the audience to call out individual numbers which are put on the board. In the meantime, the girl is flashing the lights and sounding her hooter to say, come on, it's time to go. And she's still driving onto the stage very slowly, and I apologize to the audience that we don't have time to finish it. It would have been very interesting if they would have seen the end result. And then suddenly I changed my mind. I say, I must show you. And we add up the numbers that they'd called out. By that time the car has come round very slowly, and the number plate of the car is actually the total. These are just rehearsal shots of the stagehands pushing the car in. But that was the effect, that the number plate was the total of the numbers the audience had just called. That's just one of the shows.